All right, thank you so much for joining us on KTN Prime. Now tonight we're looking at the issue of terrorism, and tonight it is becoming clear and apparent that terrorist recruiters are focusing on universities. Why are they focusing on universities? What role does social media play in all this? We'll be having a conversation immediately after this bulletin. I will be hosting 3 gentlemen in studio and 1 other gentleman on Skype to get you to understand this, because this is very important, especially for parents who have children in the universities. Remember, one of the men accused of masterminding that attack at Garissa University College was actually a graduate. So this is a concern, not just for the parents, but the entire country as well. So immediately after this bulletin on KTN News, I'll be speaking to Dr. Mustafa Ali. He's a transformation and security expert, Mwenda Bijiwe, security analyst as well, and Abdi Wahab Sheikh, specialist in Islamic insurgents. On Skype, we'll have Abdullahi Boru. He's a Horn of Africa expert, to try and help us understand why this is suddenly happening and why the focus is on university students and what role that social media play. Let's take a look at our top stories tonight.
And I'm telling the chair, TSC, you are ruining TSC. This is not the TSC we wanted. If you are fighting TSC from within, you are fighting teachers.
As we organize ourselves, we know that a lot is expected of us, or by Wanjipo out there, so that we serve them well.
Teachers turn on the employer for challenging their pay at the Supreme Court.
University in this Nairobi today, I will not mention that university, but we are zeroing on it. The recruitment is appalling, and the boys and girls are going to Syria.
The terror link. Kenyan students spending up to 8 hours a day on terror recruitment websites.
Kamuuliza na sasa na unalala mavini ya nini? Sasa yeye hakunijibu. Haya, padio ingine sababu alikuwa amevaa sweta, alikuwa amefungilia tai kwa shingo. Sasa hii tai nikamuuliza na mbona unalala na tai? Haya, akaniambia hakunijibu about mambo ya tai.
Seeking answers, investigators grill patron over Stepjoy school fire tragedy, and tricking the tricksters, artificial rhino horn to kill black market for poachers. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Prime. Our sign language interpreter at the bottom end of your screen is Meresha Witi. I'm Linda Ogutu. The patron of Stepjoy Boys High School was today grilled by CID officers over the fire tragedy that left 3 students dead and a dozen others injured. This as the National Disaster Unit says it will tour schools around the country for random inspections on security measures in place. Ian Ofula reports.
As the mystery behind the cause of fire at Steph Boy Joyce High School deepens, a narrative by one of the witnesses reveals that it was highly likely the fire was started mischievously by a section of the students. The boys' patron, George Chege, realized that the boys in the dormitory were up to no good. And as such, he had to tackle hard-hitting questions from the CID officers who arrived at the school early Tuesday.
Nikamuuliza maswali, mmepanga kufanya nini? Grupu yako mmepanga kufanya nini? Akaniambia hakuna kitu, na kwa hivyo nikamuuliza ni nini uko naye kwa mfuko. Juu mfuko mmoja kulikuwa na kitu. Katoa nikaona alikuwa amebeba Marvin, hii kofia. Haya, hiyo kofia nikamuuliza na sasa na unalala Marvin ya nini? Sasa yeye hakunijibu. Haya, padio ingine sababu alikuwa amevaa sweta, alikuwa amefungilia tai kwa shingo. Sasa hii tai nikamuuliza na mbona unalala na tai? Haya, akaniambia hakunijibu about mambo ya tai, lakini hiyo tai alikuwa amesukumia ndani ya sweta. Nikamuuliza na nini hiyo ingine iko hapo chini? Kuangalia tai alikuwa amefungilia torch.
Questions have also been raised over whether the doors had been locked from the inside or outside, a lead the investigation officers say would bring them closer to the truth.
Mnafungia wanafunzi ndani ya domo? Hapana, hatufungangi. Vile nafanyanga, nafunga mlango mmoja wakiwa nje. Wakiwa nje nafunga mlango, alafu wakiingia mlango nafungua, sababu nikiwacha milango yote ikiwa wazi kuna mwenye ambaye akona mawazo ABCD.
On the sidelines, the National Disaster Unit and the Kenya Red Cross Society staff arrived at the scene for assessment. Their findings, they say, have prompted them to carry out random visits to schools around the country to assess the safety measures in place.
This school has a lot of things that are not is out of standards. Standards, I mean, the normal standards in terms of the doors, in terms of the buildings, in terms of the windows, in terms of the space inside the building. From my first observation, you can see that I could see that there are no water taps around, there are no hose pipes around, no simple equipment around for putting out fire in case of fire, or in case of any stampede or anything of that kind.
So far, 11 students suspected to be behind the fire incident that left 3 of their schoolmates dead were remanded at the Tigoni police station for 2 days as investigators collected more evidence. Ian Wafula, KTN News.
Let's take you to the coast now. Chaos disrupted the second day of the Kenya Primary School Heads Association meeting that happened in Mombasa today. The Teachers Service Commission found itself under fire for failing to discuss why they went to court to counter the awarded pay hike for teachers. KTN's Francis Ontomo witnessed that drama.
We organize ourselves. We know that a lot is expected of us all by Wanjipo out there so that we serve them well.
We want to know about our salaries. Madam, we are in court.
Where Dr. Lydia Nzomo's script will end, the teacher's script was to begin. And it was a moment to vent out frustrations after the TSC chairperson failed to touch on the nerve center, the salary increment hiccup. And so the teachers took the stick from her, commandeering the revolt that will disrupt the second day of the teachers' deliberations. Efforts to contain the situation failing to bear fruits, the gathering going berserk. And it was clear the storm could only be calmed by just one of their own. Kepsha chairperson Joseph Karuga played the savior.
Hello. Please wave at me. Please wave at me. Thank you very much. Wait, that's beautiful. Yeah. That's good. I know.
Noticeably, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor Jacob Kaimenyi skipped the meeting. Instead, Dr. Fred Matiang'i of ICT will carry the government's flag into the room, and at some point the heat became overwhelming. And when reporters caught up with him, he stuck between the rails, sidestepping the conflict.
We are looking at how content is delivered. We are looking at how we are going to affect the ecosystem in which our children learn and access content, as it were. We are not bound or fixated about the devices. We are going to avail content on a device-neutral environment, on a universal platform.
But the storm may have been long prepared before Teachers Service Commission came into the scope. On Monday, KUNT Secretary General Wilson Sosion was to lay the ground for Tuesday's meeting, asking teachers to reject any form of intimidation by their employer.
Treasury should be complaining about lack of money, but not TSC. And I'm telling the chair TSC, you are ruining TSC. This is not the TSC we wanted. If you are fighting TSC from within, you are fighting teachers, and we will not allow you to do that.
TSC has filed a case against the Court of Appeals ruling that gave way for teachers to be awarded an increment of 50 to 60%. The matter will be heard on the 13th of August. The last laugh for teachers appears to be taking too long, at least regarding the pay hike awarded by the courts, and perhaps reason why there was commotion in the room. A clear pointer that the dissatisfaction continues. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Mombasa.
The Big Q, in association with Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences.
Let's stay with that story. Teachers agitated their TSC, finding itself on the wrong side of the entire scenario. Teachers wondering why TSC does not want to pay them the pay hike that they were awarded by the court. And tonight we're asking for your thoughts. You have seen that story by Francis Ontomo. You've witnessed the chaos, and you're asking, what are your thoughts on the chaos witnessed in Mombasa today that happened at the Kenya Primary School Heads Association meeting in Mombasa? Tweet us at KTN Kenya. Tweet me at Lindo Gutu. I'll be sampling some of your views during this bulletin.
Enroll with us today in any of our branches countrywide. Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences, nurturing professional excellence.
In the same breath, the Teachers Service Commission has taken the battle over teachers' pay increment to the highest court in the land. TSC has gone to the Supreme Court today to challenge the recent Court of Appeal ruling that ordered TSC to implement the 50 to 60% pay rise beginning this month. The TSC wants the Supreme Court to stop the execution of the order by the Court of Appeal, arguing that it was a misinterpretation of various articles of the Constitution. TSC lawyers Fred Ngatia and Stella Ruto filed the papers in which they want the setting aside of the entire ruling given by the Court of Appeal last month and the ruling by the Employment and Labour Relations Court in June. The Supreme Court has now ordered TSC to serve the Kenya National Union of Teachers and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, that is KUPPET, ahead of the hearing set for Thursday next week. Right, let's focus on security matters and something that could be of a concern to parents in the country. The internet is increasingly being used to recruit youth into extremist groups. The National Counter-Terrorism Center has said surveillance on internet usage has shown young men, especially in universities, spend up to 8 hours on terror-related websites, learning various issues that expose them to radicalization. Masikandie has that story.
Kenya has 26.1 million internet users. A good number of those on the net are the youth. And as these numbers increase, so does the use of internet in recruiting youth into extremist groups. These are the findings of the National Counter-Terrorism Center.
I can assure you that is the truth. We have a university in this Nairobi today. I will not mention that university, but we are zeroing on it. The recruitment is appalling. Today, it is appalling. And the boys and girls are going to Syria. That I can assure you.
The men, especially in the universities, spend up to 8 hours on terror-related websites, showed the surveillance. Speaking at the Strathmore Law School during a terrorism lecture, Director of Criminal Investigations, Ndegwa Muhoro, said they have profiled all those who have been reported to them as missing or having joined the terror groups.
We're talking about drivers of terrorism. At what point did it start? And what were the issues then? And are those issues still obtaining? Have they been resolved? You know, it's an area, and I must say we are learning and we continue learning. We cannot say at one particular point that you have learned enough and any act of terror.
Adding that 100 youth who had crossed to Somalia to join terror group Al-Shabaab have come back and surrendered to authorities. Muhoro said most of the recruits may come back to launch terror attacks in Kenya, urging parents to always monitor the behavior of their children and report to authorities.
The protection of lives and critical infrastructure remains the key objectives of Kenya's counter-terrorism measures. Kenya has taken several measures to effectively deny safe haven to terrorists and to control borders.
A combination of peer pressure and religion also account for why young people are joining extremist organizations, given that most of them were aged between 20 and 25, the report says. Masikandie, KTN News.
Let's now focus on a story we have been focusing on for the last couple of days and probably give some parents some reassurance that they need. The National Quality Control Lab has said the polio vaccine is safe and free from impurities. The lab has been carrying out tests after the Catholic Church put up strong opposition to the vaccine currently being administered to children under 5 across the country. The assurance comes as the government reported that Kenyans have responded well to the ongoing polio immunization drive despite a boycott call call by the Catholic Church. Director of Medical Services, Dr. Nicholas Muraguri, said that by Monday, the third day of the immunization campaign, at least 4 million children had been immunized across the country. He expressed confidence that by the last day of the campaign, the target of reaching 6 million children will have been reached or even surpassed. Now, county governments stand to generate more revenue if 6 bills drafted by the Commission on Revenue Allocation are approved. CRA Chairman Mika Chesrem said the Commission created the bills in partnership with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers to create a legal framework for counties to collect revenue.
We found that county government were having challenges when they are collecting taxes because there was no legislation, there was no policy. So we have worked with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, that's the Commission on Revenue Allocation. We have worked with the county government to develop these model laws. And you'll see going forward, there will be less court cases. And the county governments working, the executive and the county assembly, will find it easy to just justify the residents why they are collecting taxes.
We've had various revenue collection laws in various counties. I think this will bring harmonization in these laws, and it will help us also address some of the disharmonies that have been existing. We talked about the various rates in various countries, some too high, some too low, without probably not taking what the economic indicators are.
While you're watching KTN Prime, let's remind you of a big question tonight. Chaos disrupted the second day of the Kenya Primary Schools Heads Association meeting in Mombasa today. TSC Commission found itself under fire for failing to discuss why they went to court to counter the awarded pay hike for teachers. So tonight on KTN Prime, we're asking for your thoughts on the chaos that were witnessed in Mombasa today. Tweet us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya. You can tweet me as well at Linda Ogutu. Thank you for staying with us. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. Let's stay at the Kenyan-Ugandan border. And Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to address the Ugandan Parliament later this week. The address comes at a time the Ugandan Parliament is making constitutional amendments. Uhuru is expected to talk on issues of integration and trade, especially since Kenya is Uganda's main trading partner and gateway to the Indian Ocean. Here's a story from our partners NBS in Uganda.
The Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olanya, says Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta will address the 9th Parliament on Friday this week upon invitation. AKG Olanya, however, did not reveal Uhuru's point of focus while delivering his speech.
President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya. So please make us I am surprised that the members have been under what rule. President Uhuru Kenyatta is president, so he will be addressing Parliament on Friday 2 p.m. So members, please let's organize and be there to receive his address. Thank you.
The visit comes a few days after Uhuru Kenyatta hosted United States President Barack Hussein Obama. It will be Uhuru's first time to address Uganda's parliament since he came to power. Legislators are upbeat about the visit. They want Uhuru, leader of East Africa's biggest economy, to talk about progress on regional integration and to also advise Uganda on the ongoing constitutional amendments.
Which is, regional and international. I expect President Uhuru to talk about that and calling upon the leadership here and members of parliament to support our governments in the fight against terrorism.
So I would expect him also to address Parliament of Uganda issues regarding entrepreneurship and investment.
Others believe he will share with Ugandans the outcome of the meeting between regional investors and President Barack Obama. But the less enthusiastic expect little from the visit.
We don't expect a lot because I don't think he's here to lecture us on any other matter.
You know, Obama was emphasizing so much, saying you should not rule for life. So I am thinking that the man may be coming to Uganda, trying to learn on the techniques Ugandans are doing, what the president of Uganda is doing so that it help him in the future. In case he thinks like maybe amending the constitution of Uganda, scrubbing of the term limit.
Well, according to the parliamentary rules and procedures, no foreign minister is allowed to address the Ugandan parliament, with the privilege only held by a sitting president of another country. Story compiled by Sam Ivandamugabi for NBS Sunset.
Let's take you back to our earlier story. County governments stand to generate more revenue. That is, if 6 bills drafted by the Commission on Revenue Allocation are approved. Let's bring in Joy Doreen Bera to take a look at what this now portends for the counties in the country. Joy?
Yes, Linda. The Commission on Revenue Allocation, CRA, and the Kenya Association of Manufacturers have partnered and come together, drafted 5 bills, not 6 like you mentioned. They are 5, as they seek to generate more revenue for the counties at the end of the day. And joining me to further enlighten us more on this is the Commission on Revenue Allocation Chair, that is Mika Chisrem, and also he is the former CBK governor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
It's such an honor having you in studio. Kindly briefly tell us about these bills and what exactly you are aiming to achieve, how much revenue you hope you can collect out of them.
Okay. If I take you the background, the first place, when the county government came into place, in the first year and the last year, there was a lot of outcry because they raised fees very high, because basically there was a dispute that they didn't get enough money on equitable share, and they really raised the charges a lot. So the major complaint came from the private sector, that there was double taxation, they are being harassed. So partnering and talking to the private sector, Kenya Association of Manufacturers are a major organization. They said their members were very unhappy. So we have gone to the ground and really worked with all county governments to prepare these 5 pieces of legislation, which really make sure there is no double taxation, which makes sure when you move from one county to another, you are not charged extra fees. But more importantly, the whole spirit of CRA is to create a conducive environment in the private sector, because we want to attract the private sector. We have seen governors going overseas asking investors to come to Kenya. If already those ones in town are unhappy, the moment they come here, they'll ask them how is the environment. They'll be told things are very bad.
Yes.
So basically, these pieces of legislation are meant to make sure to create the right environment. So they will not necessarily increase the taxes, but the taxes will be very fair. And I want to say that every part of Kenya is a county. And honestly, if we go the route we are going, we will not attract foreign investors. We will not be competitive. And if there are no investors here, we won't have those jobs for so many young people. So the governors are bought into this, the members of county assembly are bought into this, and the whole idea is really to make sure there is fairness in taxation.
All right, so just tell us about these draft bills. Can you just define them specifically and what each of them probably hopes to address?
Yeah, the first one is called Revenue Administration Act, and that's basically administration of revenue, so that does not raise any tax. The Finance Act will be used, the Finance Act is really a taxation measure. Remember, they are expected to entertainment taxes. Article 209 empowers county government to collect entertainment tax and property rates and charges. So county governments are not allowed to collect taxes that national government is already collecting. They cannot go on and say, we want you to pay income tax. So Finance Act is used to collect basically entertainment tax. Now, Rating Act. This is very, very important. Rating Act. That is the biggest revenue earner for properties. Take Nairobi County. Nairobi County, I think, are relying on a valuation roll of 1982. So this Rating Act should be able to allow them to revise a valuation role more quickly. Governor Guerrero was saying, just by increasing the rates, property rates, he has raised revenue to something like 13 billion shillings. 13 billion for Nairobi using old Rating Act. But if you use the new one, and they say the property is charged an improved site value. So Rating Act to us is very, very important. And I want to say a bit more on Nairobi. If they collect the right property rates, Nairobi, in 5 years, Nairobi will not be part of the sharing of revenue. Nairobi, if it's raised now 14 billion, in 4 or 5 years, they could raise 40 billion on rates alone. What does that mean? It means Nairobi can even release some of the money to the poorer counties. So this Rating Act is very important.
Okay.
Number 4, Public Participation Act. At the moment, there is no definition of public participation. Counties have been taken to court that there was no public participation. So this particular act says, how shall we conduct public participation? Our constitution is very, very strong on public participation, that people must be consulted. So this one says, it will say in each county, how shall we conduct the public vis-a-vis taxation.
Right.
And then Trade Licensing Act. There's a lot of trade licenses. The challenge here is to reduce the trade licenses as to really define what will it cover. Because at the moment, if Coca-Cola moves Coca-Cola from here, Nairobi, say to Kitui, if it passes 1-2 counties, goes from Nairobi to Machakos, Governor Mutua can say, pay me some money. It goes to Kitui, pay me some money. We want to stop that.
All right. There's somewhere in the bill where they say even people who have home farms are going to be able to pay taxes. This is something that is in one of the draft bills, but do you think this is viable?
People who have got
farms, their own personal farms, are also going to be liable to paying taxes?
Farms?
Yes, like home farms where they grow agricultural produce in the agriculture sale bill. Is this viable if people with this little income are also being taxed?
No. Remember taxation, the revenue you get from taxing must be much more than the cost of collection. So I don't think that will happen. If you're going to grow sukuma wiki in your own compound, madam, go ahead. I don't think you'll be taxed.
All right. County allocation, when you started CRA, it was much less than what you had hoped. And it's how many years now down the line?
This is the 3rd year.
How challenging has it been, knowing that many counties say the allocation has not been enough?
Let me say, money is never enough. Even Joy, here where you are, your salary is never enough, is it? Nobody says it's enough.
Uncomfortable.
But there's a problem in Kenya. The revenue of the country, collected by KRA, roughly 1 trillion. The budget is 2 trillion. So we have got this huge gap. The national government had a lot of pressure to pay debt, and a lot of pressure. You have seen teachers, they want more pay. So national government, CRA has recommended money to county governments. Whatever we recommend is always reduced because national government rightly says we can't afford this money.
Right.
Ideally, after 3 years, we shall be allowing county government to borrow. At the moment, they are not allowed to borrow.
So in 3 years' time, we'll be seeing...
In 3 years, next year, they should borrow. But we will not want them to borrow like national government.
All right. So how soon do we expect that these draft bills will be approved?
These draft bills will now be discussed in every county government. These bills will be discussed by every county government. They will take their own time to approve them, but it's to facilitate them. Because it is, what is very clear, if a county wants to attract investors, it must have an environment that is conducive to investors, because there is no point to travel all the way to America. I read the papers today, governors from North Rift and South Rift went to persuade investors to come. That's a very good thing. But what we must do first is to create the environment here. Environment. And I must say very fast.
Okay.
We have got very bloated county governments. We have too many employees. If you go to every county government virtual headquarters, you can see wastage straight away. So the first thing they have to do in the next 2 years is to reduce the number of employees.
Reduce the number
of employees,
right.
Because it's a burden on private sector.
Right. I wish we really had more time for this, but at least the information has been passed across. Thank you so much. It was an honor having you explain to us about the bills and, of course, what exactly they mean for the county governments. CRA Chair Mika Chisaran talking to us about the partnership with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. 5 draft bills have been put out to generate more income for the county governments. Business news is coming up shortly. Do stay with us.
Jerry, before we get to business, let's focus on a story that will be good news for conservationists in the country. Kenya is among countries that have staged concerted campaigns to save the rhino, but the mammal still remains endangered, with fears that it could be extinct in a few decades. Well, all may not be lost, and the latest effort to save the rhino is not in the wild, but in a laboratory. A U.S. company is looking to bioengineer rhino horns, then flood a lucrative black market and eventually save the endangered species from extinction. Rita Tinina has that story.
One of the big 5, the rhino tops the list of the most endangered mammals, not just in the country. Such scenes perhaps illustrate just how endangered the rhino is. The rhino horn is much sought after by poachers. Poaching levels for the rhino horn have increased in recent years, largely driven by demand for the horn, especially in Asian countries. And not even efforts by private conservancies or the custodian of Kenya's wildlife, KWS, have managed to get the rhino out of the woods. About 20,000 rhinos roamed the Kenyan wild in the 1970s. Now, just over 1,000 are left, meaning that 95% of the 70s population has been wiped out. Rhino horns such as this one fetch hundreds of thousands of shillings on the black market. Well, for this horn, no rhino was killed. This one was bioengineered in a lab in the US, but would easily pass for a real rhino horn.
There's going to be some differences still. I mean, we're not bioidentical yet, though that's the goal.
The Pembient company obtained a real horn and is using the latest biotechnology to replicate it so that it can pass for the real thing. The idea is to flood the lucrative rhino horn black market with the bioengineered horns and make it costly for buyers to test whether they have the real deal.
One of the interim goals is to make it more costly to test the object and the object's worth, and I think we're pretty much getting to that territory now.
The company hopes to perfect the science in coming months, then start selling the lab-grown horns. It is betting that poachers will be among its best customers.
We can't really control what happens to our horn once it leaves our distribution points, so there's potential people will take our horn and relabel it as wild horn.
Rhino horns are comprised primarily of keratin, a family of proteins that make up hair and nails, and are used as an ingredient in conventional medicine.
We want to make it such that people may not want to basically go out there and do this particular work anymore because it won't have this very lucrative payday for them.
The bioengineering of the rhino horn is the latest shot at saving the second largest land mammal, and maybe, just maybe, the technology at this San Francisco lab may pay off as the efforts to save the rhino now move from the plains and savannas to the lab. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Very good news, I must say. We're taking a break. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Thank you for keeping it KTN. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Let's look at business. Equity Bank closed 2014 on a high after emerging as the most profitable bank in the country. However, the bank has had to cede this top spot following the release of its half-year numbers. The bank's net profit was up 12% in the period to 8.5 billion shillings, coming in second behind KCB, which posted an after-tax profit of 9.2 billion shillings during the period. Investment in its mobile virtual network Equitel network saw the bank's non-funded income grow by 30% to 10.8 billion shillings. The bank also registered good business from its subsidiaries in Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda and South Sudan, which posted a combined pre-tax profit of 920 million shillings. Equity also posted a 40% jump in customer deposits from 215 billion shillings last year to 301 billion shillings, which lifted Equity's assets by 32.4% to 400.9 billion shillings, and this allowed the bank to grow its loan book by 27%.
Equity Bank got 52 billion shillings from OPIC. Perhaps you can just tell us where is that money going to go? What sectors are you targeting, and what are you looking forward to as you know this year goes on?
More than 50% of the commitment from the Global Entrepreneurship Summit was a commitment to be discharged by Equity Bank. And we are calling on the young entrepreneurs, the women in business, and our medium enterprises to take advantage of this facility.
Equitel had a 1.6% market share in 3 months. Perhaps you can just tell us how did this happen? I mean, you just launched the other day, and we're seeing a huge surge in interest and in the performance of Equitel. So tell us about it.
By March, we had captured when we had only 665 SIM cards out there, we had captured nearly 2% of the market share. It was 1.9. And we're very optimistic that now we're headed between 4 and 5 with over 1 million subscribers. But what is exciting us is that within that same period, our customers have processed 77 million transactions on Equitel, and that over the last 6 months, 12% of our cash transactions have already moved to Equitel. And 20th of July, when 30,000 Kenyans applied for loans on a single day. It was really amazing. So the uptake is very impressive. Just within those 6 months, we have 666,000 Kenyans having obtained their loans, and the month of July, 2.4 billion shillings. So that is the success. So this Equitel is more successful than even we imagined ourselves.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Dr. Mwangi. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was Dr. James Mwangi telling us, Equity is doing great things, and we should stand by and watch in the second half as they unveil even more products. My name is Adelaide Changole. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Adelaide Changole. Despite Kenya priding itself as a hotbed for investment, its global ranking tells of another tale. A study by South African investment bank Rand Merchant Bank ranks Kenya 11th out of the 54 African countries, having fallen from the top 10 bracket since the previous study released last year. We have more.
Kenya has fallen behind Tanzania and Rwanda as the top investment destination in East Africa, dampening the country's ambition to become a regional leader in tapping foreign direct investment. A new report that lists the investment climate across all 54 economies in Africa indicates that East Africa's economic giant is trailing behind her neighbors in terms of attracting top investment. South Africa has been ranked as the most attractive investment destination, extending its lead and maintaining its position as the leading economic powerhouse in Africa, despite Nigeria's rebasing its GDP last year and rising to the top position of African economies. According to the report, 2014 was a less favorable year for Africa's investment attractiveness, with 22 countries receiving lower scores. Nigeria, Ghana, Morocco and Tunisia round up the top 5 economies in Africa respectively, with Egypt slipping 3 slots to the 6th position. The other economies in the top 10 positions are Ethiopia, Algeria, Rwanda and Tanzania, with Kenya and Libya dropping out of the top 10. The investment bank, however, notes that Kenya is East Africa's gateway for foreign direct investment, with plans to transform Nairobi into an international banking and financial hub. The bank highlights challenges including the inefficient legal system, graft, and the failure to put into practice the double taxation treaty with Uganda and Tanzania as reasons why attractiveness had dipped. Rwanda and Ethiopia are emerging as strong contenders to unseat Kenya as the economic powerhouse in Eastern African region. The report comes days after Kenya hosted the 6th Global Entrepreneurship Summit, which saw thousands of entrepreneurs from all over the world converge for the meeting, which was officially opened by presidents of the US and Kenya. Kenya is further set to host the 10th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization in December, after winning the bid to hold the high-profile summit that will once again see the business world converge at the East African nation for the second time in less than 6 months. Charles Gitonga, KTN News.
The Kenya Institute of Management has launched the 2015 Company of the Year Award. The award is organized to celebrate competitiveness and efficiency among organizations using a globally recognized business framework known as the Organizational Performance Index, or OPI. The participating companies are also rated for their corporate social responsibility, environmental focus, and productivity, as well as quality. Over the years, organizers noted the awards have nurtured a spirit that promotes distinction and integrity in management practices, thereby increasing local competitiveness and performance in an increasingly global world. Last year, Crown Paints completed a double after being declared the top firm, while also scooping up the Best CEO award. Since its inception, the number of participating organizations has grown steadily year on year, and the COIA process has evolved as the business environment has become more sophisticated.
Collaborate. When we talk about collaboration, it means that people can hold meetings even when they are not in the office.
So OPI looks at your financial management, to your human resources, to your leadership, to your mission and your values. So it helps you set up these structures for yourselves as a company. So for us, when we set these up, it has really assisted us to grow and have a good service for our customers.
And well, that's it that we had for you on tonight's edition of KTN Business. Now let's take a look at the financial markets.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Let's focus on sports now. The national 15th team to face Namibia in a Confederation of Africa rugby fixture was named with Nick Baraza as the only new inclusion into the team that won the international test match against Spain in Nairobi last month.
Kabel's Sugar Nicodemus Baraza will replace injured Samuel Mutari in the Kenya 15 squad that will play Namibia in a Confederation of African Rugby fixture away in Windhoek. Baraza was the only new inclusion to the side that beat Spain 36-27 at home.
Baraza checks in. He's also just come off a hand injury and he's been performing quite well in the training. And I must say that Nick also gave us a very, very good show last year during the World Cup qualifiers and the Vodacom Cup. So definitely he's also got some good experience and also brings in a lot of motivation to the team.
The 22-man squad understands perfectly the tough assignment ahead as they face World Cup bound Namibia, hoping to carry on the recent winning streak and most importantly retain the African Cup.
We're going nothing out for a win, nothing less than a win. We want a win, we want to retain the cup, at the same time the ranking.
Kenya's continental campaign kicked off with a 20-28 loss away to Zimbabwe before redeeming itself by thrashing Tunisia 46-15. Jerome Pawater's charges have won 3 consecutive matches at home, but can they carry that form in their away fixture?
It's very important to finish among the top 25 in the world. It's very simple. We move into the tier 2 of world ranking. Tier 2 means that the facilities that we'll train in will have to improve. Funding from International Rugby Board checks in. This trickles down to the clubs, trickles down to the national team.
Besides Simba's task to defend the African title, of importance is an improvement in the world ranking.
We've really polished our areas of errors, and this time round the boys are ready for it.
Kenya is currently ranked 28th in the world.
Kenyans from all walks of life were treated to amazing scenes from South African rider Brian Kappa's stunts as the biker visited the country to promote biking. The 10 times supermoto champion, who was in the country courtesy of Red Bull, hopes to see motocross developed more in Kenya. Robinson Okenya paid him a visit and filed this story.
To some, these scenes are surreal and can only be seen in movies. The gravity-defying and adrenaline-gushing motorbike stunts are hard to come by for most people. But for Kenyan university students around the country, the stunts who have translated into reality when top South African and 10-time supermoto and trials champion Brian Kappa toured the country. The South African was in the country for Red Bull biking activation, expressed his hopes that biking has an opportunity to soar to greater heights.
The biggest thing is to promote the sport, which is what we're doing here, and for people, especially younger people, to get excited about it, and then for them to buy some bikes. You know, obviously that's the only way that they're going to get the sport growing, is to actually get a bike and start riding. So, you know, this is our plan is to show people what the sport is about, and then from there they can get a bike and start riding.
Brian, who began riding at the age of 9, boasts of a well-decorated trophy cabinet full of trophies won during his career spanning over 20 years. The South African lamented the lack of resources in Africa, adding that it's the reason the continent lags behind.
A big thing is to get access to the bikes. You know, obviously without the bikes you can't perform in the sport.
Broken bones and torn muscles that have characterized his career have not hindered him from achieving his goals.
Our sport, injuries play a big part. So the way that you come back is just to get the excitement and the good feeling again from the people's reactions.
His next challenge for now will be winning the Enduro X Challenge in South Africa in 2 weeks. For some, stunts like this are just but a dream. But for the South African, these are not just stunts, but one way he's using to express his love for motocross, and also another way of spreading the sport across Africa. Robinson Okenya, KTN Sports.
KTN Weather, in association with More Team Do.
Mama has More Team Doom, which makes mosquitoes go away and not come back the whole night. So you get a peaceful night's sleep all night long.
More Team Doom. A peaceful night is a More Team Doom night. The Big Q, in association with Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences.
So chaos disrupted the second day of the Kenya Primary School Heads Association meeting that happened today in Mombasa. And on our big question tonight, we're asking for your thoughts on the chaos that were witnessed in Mombasa. James Crop Loshita says teachers' concerns should be taken seriously and they have been tricked severally. Just accept the offer and forget. Abdul Makel says government beautified Nairobi for 3 days. Saga, but can't pay its lifetime saviors. Mary Peter says, as the TSC fights teachers in Mombasa, teachers are still waiting for July salaries, let alone the increment. Silas Ichuloi says, I guess salary increment is a big issue that requires a permanent solution. Jamal Seda says, teachers should be paid, but avoid such chaos. Fintal Ndinya says the teachers must always be conscious of their role as mentors and watch on their behavior in public. Those are just some of your opinion on our big question tonight, on your thoughts on the chaos that happened today in Mombasa.
Enroll with us today in any of our branches countrywide. Thika School of Medical and Health Sciences, nurturing professional excellence.
Alright, we thank you for watching KTN Prime, but here's the thing. We're having a discussion right after this bulletin on KTN News. You can be part of that conversation. You can use the hashtag #WorldView. And tonight we're looking at radicalization, we're looking at social media, and we're looking at this emerging trend where universities are now new recruit grounds. Why is that a concern? Are you a parent? Do you have a child in any of the universities in Kenya? What do you know about your son or your daughter in the university? Be part of that conversation. Tweet me at Linda Ogutu at KTN News. Remember, use the hashtag #WorldView. We'll be back with that discussion on KTN News. Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu.